you can't describe a spiritual experience to people that have never had one.
Yes,
Like you are able to understand my spiritual experience because you've had one yourself and you can understand that description. It's like going back in time and going to 1850 and saying, here's my iPhone, check it out. What do you think? You'd be cast a heathen or a witch and burnt at the stake in the local community in the center of town.
that's exactly it.
And so if you think of it that way, that's because we're not meant to communicate and relay that. Not many of us have those spiritual experiences that human words, 3D words can talk about.
Welcome to Super Normalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the seemingly supernatural. Join me, CJ Barnaby, in the liminalist space to explore less charted realms of existence and to unravel the mysteries of life experience. Each episode, I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to regular people from across the world where they openly share their understanding and wisdom in service to others. If you're looking to upgrade your life, you've come to the right place. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll bring you great transforming conversations each week. My treasured viewers and listeners, if you have a life story or healing modality or unique knowledge that you'd love to share, reach out to me at supernormalized@proton.me. Let's together embrace acceptance of the supernatural and unusual, what it really is, completely normal. Today on Super Normalized, we have Jason Zuk. Jason has an interesting story in that he actually grew up sort of like a regular sort of person, but he started to have these intuitions and psychic sort of connections to people and would have understandings that were beyond his normal sort of experience of the world. That all culminated with an experience where he had a vision of his grandfather's passing, and his grandfather came to him and reassured him, which actually connected him to more of his mediumship ability. He became an attorney and separates that from his psychic ability, but still, he uses this connection to his mediumship and to his psychic ability to help people in the world. So that's what this show's about. Please enjoy. Welcome to Super Normalized, Jason Zook. Jason, it's really good to see you and to catch up with you this time. We had a bit of trouble with technical difficulties in the past and sort of slightly missed connections. I think the universe was actually trying to keep us apart. So this is probably going to be one of those really good stories.
CJ, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, yeah. So Jason, you were living like a sort of a fairly sort of normal life, but you also had a lot of intuitive and mediumship sort of encounters. Can you tell us your story leading up to that, and then what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in New Jersey, outside New York City, about 5 miles from Manhattan.
Yeah,
And my grandmother was intuitive, and basically we didn't really say much about it. When I was a little kid, I used to get deja vu moments a lot. So I
yeah,
knew there was something up when I would sense things before they happened. Then I was in law school, and I always had a premonition that when my grandfather passes away, I'll be by myself with no one to like help me, feel better and, you know, comfort me at the time of his passing. Can you hear me?
Oh, I couldn't for a second. You actually froze for about 30 seconds there.
Oh, yeah, you were frozen to me just now too.
Oh
Sorry about that.
no, what's going on?
Internet should work though, from what I know. I got a hard wire, so.
Okay, yeah,
You want me to go back?
right. Yeah. Roll back to when you were talking about your
Yeah.
granddad.
So I was in this hotel room in Wisconsin, and basically I wound up falling on my bed, like sitting back. And when I realized he died, my mom had called to tell me that. And Orb's light came in the room, and my grandfather came to me and said, "Son, I love you. Don't ever grieve me. I'm always gonna be with you. Go get some food for yourself, and I'm always gonna be with you." And it was like a overwhelming calm and peace and love. I can't even the most authentic love I've ever experienced. Of course, it'd be that way. So I went
Wow.
to get food. And I was all calm, and my friend from high school called me, Tracy, and she wanted to know how my grandfather was. I told her he died. She's like, "Where are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm in Wisconsin." She goes, "Oh my God, your premonition. You were by yourself. Are you by yourself right now?" I was like, "Yeah, but I'm all right." Long story short, I picked up on her grandmother that passed away 6 months earlier, and I said something very personal to her, only her and her grandmother knew. So she started crying out of like shock. And I realized then that I had some mediumship abilities that wasn't just a one-time experience. And for about 10 years, I always slept the light on because of my own way of justifying what I was going through. And
Mm.
then I also learned how to manage it better. And then over time, I met some great people like my best friend Megan Kane, who I do my other show with. She's one of the main catalysts for me, like letting the public know I'm psychic, giving readings, and start my podcast and stuff because she encouraged me. She has her own metaphysical shop here in Tampa called Royal Susie. And I just started meeting people through that and reading for them. And then she said, helped me basically have the confidence to hang my shingle as a psychic and as a lawyer. So that's kind of like where all those things kind of flow.
I love
And since that's happened, my life has been very super normalized in the sense, the
it.
intuitive stuff of my life. Like my life just isn't being a lawyer, and there's so many life lessons we learn and so many things we grow and heal from and go through, and like going through cancer in 2018 for me, or just having all these other experiences. We discussed that on my show, and
Yeah.
just talking, having these commonalities in our lives.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I just want to roll back to your experience of when you were there and your grandfather appeared to you. How did he appear?
It was like orbs of light, I call it, like
Yeah.
flowing.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was like a water flowing, but it wasn't water, it was spirit.
Spirit.
And it was very
Yeah.
bright. It lit up the whole room.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. And then you felt that overwhelming sense of calm and his presence and then his direct communication with you.
He's come through so many times since then. It's been 20 years ago, August of 2004. He died August 12th, 2004. Synchronicity is I live at 812 on my street. And I didn't know that commonality between those two till 10 years of living at my address. But
Wow. That's
I
wild.
always sense energy. He came to me yesterday, told me everything's
Yeah.
going to be great going forward, son. You'll be fine. I was overthinking something.
That's cool. You've got like a spirit mentor, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is he your only spirit mentor?
My dad's communicated with me over a series of dreams because we didn't have a relationship growing up because he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and my mom kept us separate, which was good for us. But he died about 10 years ago, and he started coming to me asking for forgiveness, and I kept kind of closing it out, not responding or not giving that, thought, even entertaining it. And then one day he came to me and said, "Okay, my sister has my credit card, debit card," and he gave me the last four digits of it. And then I called her the next day. She was still alive at the time, and we talked, and she goes, I go, "Can you check the wallet and see that you have my dad's? And is this number ring a bell?" And she comes back and she's like, "Okay, I got his wallet." And she goes, "Those four numbers do match the last four of his debit card here that's in the wallet." So the next day he comes to me in the tree. He goes, "Do you believe it's me now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I forgot." And as soon as I did that, as soon as I forgave him, like this huge weight got taken off my shoulders. I
Oh,
carried that.
that's wonderful. So he comes along too and helps you out sometimes.
All of our loved ones that are on the other side that we have love with, connections to animals, humans, we're all interconnected. Love is that's like gravity. It's a force of nature that keeps us connected even on the other side. So any loved one you can imagine that might come to you will. And sometimes we think it's just serendipity, but yeah, I think it's real.
Well, I don't know about serendipity. I actually think it's real too, and I believe we all have a spirit team, and whether we acknowledge them or not, that's another thing too. And
Absolutely.
as you've discovered, the acknowledgement actually brings them through even more. So then you can have a connection that it, can help you in life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was so grateful for mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the Hawaiian tradition, they believe that everyone that dies is actually a part of your spirit team as well. So, that's quite normal.
I like the idea of it. You're not alone.
Not
You're
alone. We
spiritually
aren't.
connected.
Yeah.
And what you're going through, you can definitely correlate it to say that you have a team behind you. I like that idea.
Yeah. Well, imagine that like really we're all spiritual beings all of the time, and then a part of our spirit is actually effectively downloaded into our bodies that we live in. and then
Absolutely.
lit and then while living in that body, our other spirit connections can come along and connect with us depending on the frequency that we're actually vibrating at or resonating at.
I'd like to give you an example that kind of enunciates what you just said about Spirit Team. I just thought of it as we're talking about it.
Yeah, cool.
So I'll make it short. It's an anecdote, but I think it can prove a point. I had my colonoscopy after my cancer surgery cleared the kidney cancer, and then I had to do a colonoscopy. And after that, I had my diverticulitis surgery about a month later. Between all that, I had the colonoscopy and I was knocked out. And when I was knocked out, I was in a garden. And if you and I talking right now is like 1080p, this was like 5 billion p. The
I know what you
pixelation,
mean. I know
or
what you
you know what
mean.
I mean? You've been on their side. You said
Yeah,
my
yeah.
grandfather comes to me and says, "Son, when you come out of here and you talk to your mother, tell her that you're not going to die before her. She's going to live a normal life. You're going to live a normal life, and that let her know I've heard everything she said." So I came out of it, called my mom. Everything was confirmed. So my little spirit team, my little huddle was my grandfather confirming to me that the private prayer my mom said for the 90 days that I had the cancer, she'd pray to God and then pray to him, dad, her dad, my grandfather, and ask that she wouldn't die, I wouldn't predecease her, and she wouldn't have to bury me, and that she'd live a normal life. And that was when the cancer was still uncertain. So he came back and repeated it to her, parroted it back to her to let her know he heard her.
That's
And
cool.
we got very emotional when we were on the phone call discussing it. And it's definitely that spiritual team thing you're talking about.
Yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. And then one thing I've noted about that experience that you said, where you went into the other space, and it's like 5,000p. Um, every time I've been into those sort of spaces, it's always like that, and it's like it's more real than this, like more real than this. But that's really hard to understand until you've been there, and when you're in there, it's phenomenal. It's just so
You know the
clear.
analogy I use with that? You can't you can't describe a spiritual experience to people that have never had one.
Yes.
Like you are able to understand my spiritual experience because you've had one yourself and you can understand that description. It's like going back in time and going to 1850 and saying, "Here's my iPhone, check it out. What do you think?" You'd be cast a heathen or a witch and burnt at the stake in the local community in the center of town.
That's exactly it.
And so if you think of it that way, that's because we're not meant to communicate and relay that. Not many of us have those spiritual experiences that human words, 3D words can talk about.
Mm,
So
that's it. That's it. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the spirit world is, it's got less restrictions upon it. That's the reason I think why it actually seems even more real. It's like when you can do
right.
anything.
For time, matter, space, it's unrestricted.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. The illusion that we have is, time exists, and we've got to exist through this certain amount of time. But when you're outside of time, you see all time. So
It's true.
yeah. So you're trailing along in life, you're a lawyer, and you're developing your mediumship skills with the help of your spirit team. Did you actually have any other mentors in real life too?
My best friend Megan, I consider her one of my personal mentors and best friend who
Hmm.
helped me through some transitions as I was developing my own podcasting and the psychic spiritual stuff. She and I just we like do downloads to each other, like telepathically talk to each other without even being in the same room. And
Oh,
we've
that's
been
cool.
really support. We're like a team. So I'm like, she's my spirit team in real life. We just
Mm.
did a paranormal investigation in Utah together a couple weeks ago
Oh, wow.
and counted real supernatural stuff on tape. They videoed us. It's on the Realm Tube. It's called at Realm Tube on YouTube. RealmTube. You can watch it. It's pretty good. It's pretty cool. And
Yeah. What happened?
basically we it's called Ghost Quest, by the way, on
Yeah.
Realm Tube. Dr. Travis
Okay.
Fox was on my show and I know him from the past, and he invited us to go to his property that he just acquired called it was formerly Evermore in Utah and outside Salt Lake City. So we showed up, and when I say that I got to see the reality of what's out there that you don't always think about. Because normally when I do mediumship, I'm able to connect someone's loved one or someone that connect. Yeah. And this is going to a property that has a lot of history and a lot of spiritual activity. And then utilizing my mediumship ability to connect with those spirits and realizing that not all spirits are friendly, which I'd never really thought about until that point. I got scratched in my arm
Ouch.
and it matched these markings that were on the property. And
Wow.
you have to check it out. I'll send you the link because I think you'd enjoy watching. It's not done yet. They've been debuting parts of it,
Yeah.
but I won't talk about more of it than that. But I'll just say it was a really interesting experience for me, and it makes me realize that it's definitely something like I would see myself doing in the future at the right time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting when the spirits can reach through and actually do physical things upon you. And it's a bit surprising and unnerving at times as well.
Correct. It was unnerving for me. When it was happening, I feel like I got super excited because that's what happens when you encounter that type of thing. When you have a paradigm shifting moment, as you'll call it, where you like take the glasses off and you see something and you have to put the glasses back on and keep repeating that process until you're like really understanding that the what you're looking at is real.
Yeah, what just happened actually happened.
What just happened really occurred. Yeah, that was part of the process for me, was unwrapping all that afterwards.
Yeah, I lived in a really active house when I was a child, and one time my friend and I were actually hiding under my sister's bed to try and scare her when she got home, and we were just laying there just really quiet, and we are waiting and waiting, and then something grabbed both of our legs, like his leg and my leg at the same time, and pulled them, and like, what? There's no, how could that happen? And we bolted out of that house. Didn't go back that night. We were latchkey kids, right? So we went to his place. Yeah.
I never had direct confirmation until that trip. Well, other times here and there, but not like so explicitly.
Yeah, it's amazing when it happens. So, what other investigations have you done, or is that your first big investigation?
That was the first one that's been documented like that by a camera crew,
Okay,
and it's on YouTube right now, being
yeah,
viewed by the public. I
nice.
did do something with Megan, and I did one a couple years ago with a local news crew here in Tampa, in Florida. We went to a haunted location in Tampa, and it was a building that was over 100 years old. And we walked around the outside of it at night, and they filmed us, and we told them what we thought occurred there historically. And then they had some local historians confirm the stuff we came up with. So it was kind of fun.
That's nice. Yeah, cool, cool. What other things do you do with your abilities?
Um, I like to help people in my life when they need guidance or, just help them get through moments. But I also like helping people who call me, and I feel like it's an icebreaker when you
Yeah.
can talk to people on a deeper level and not just and then help people understand things. So that's something I love to do. Podcasting for me is real big. Like I love this art form and this expression, creative flow, and I have so
Mm,
many ideas I've been putting into action recently
mm.
that I'm trying to do more entertainment stuff while I still build up on the law stuff. So
Okay.
between that, there's a couple of different projects and stuff that I've been dedicating my time to.
So when you're working with people, do you just get impressions that just have to be talked about, or how does it work?
You have your five senses, and all of them go off at different times while I mean, they're always on, but the stronger ones come through at different times. Like if you're in a dark room, you're gonna sense more with your hearing, or if you're blindfolded, or there's different things. When I feel like with this type of stuff, it's always on, but it's trying to figure out like what's coming through and interpreting. But I feel like there's a lot like when it's spiritual, and you probably know this too, when there's spiritual communication comes through, it's authentic, you don't
Mm,
question it, you just realize it. And I
yeah.
feel like when it comes through, it's like charades. So they'll give me signs, I'll get images. My spirit guides will tell me things to share in a reading with somebody to let them know that things. Most of it is about our ego not being in the way. That was a big lesson for me. Not to let my ego. What would people think if they knew I was a psychic attorney? When I keep the two distinct and separate, like one's Monday to Friday and the other one's nights and weekends. Or what, but then over time, you just realize that you got to just live your path.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to share that you can now support the show on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/supernormalized. Your contributions help me to create even more amazing content. Please check out the link below in the show notes and join our community and unlock exclusive perks. Thank you so much for your support.
Live as
Mm,
authentic as possible. Be who you are. And the
mm,
experiences come with that. So spiritual stuff happens all the time for me. It's
mm.
part of life, part of what
Okay.
our daily experiences.
Does that mix it all at all in with your work as an attorney? Do you get impressions like, well, I don't want to take this case,
I separate. I actually put the hat on and just act as my lawyer role because there's no ethics rules that govern psychic attorneys. And I figured if there's no rule, then that probably means by by point of reference, I don't utilize my intuitive abilities in the legal side of my life.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, yeah. Now, do you do work with people one on one as well? Like,
That's my path. One of my paths I'm moving into is that stuff like life coaching, and I might study hypnotherapy at some point. I'm trying to look at what kind of healing modalities I want to get involved in that supplement the stuff I do already.
yeah,
So I'm thinking that would be fun,
okay,
is to offer different, not only to study the healing modalities that benefit me directly in my own mental health and managing stress and whatever, but also we're all on a journey. So it could be something I could use to work with other people. And that sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, cool, cool. And is there any other things you're thinking about and doing? Like, are you actually thinking about ever writing a book on your stories? And
Yes.
you are.
Yeah.
Tell us about
Eventually,
that.
I plan to. I actually plan to write a book, and I'm going to call it the analogy. I think it's going to be Anthology of the Social Psychic. I had a direct download. I was watching TV one day,
Yeah.
and literally the idea I had was that I was going to have certain people that I know that have shared spiritual experiences with me collaborate and do a book. And so it's interesting how those things get presented to you because you just be sitting there, and the next thing you know, everything's kind of coming through, and it's very unique. So
Mm,
that's one of my goals. And I also
nice.
do. I've gotten involved in some cold cases in the past, so that
Okay.
might be another direction I might take.
Yeah, right. So when you say you gotten involved, you were actually called in to help?
Yeah, yeah, and I haven't publicly revealed that case yet because they haven't gone public with the results of it.
Oh, okay.
But
Yep.
when it does go public, I know I'll be involved in that in some part of the process with Megan again. So it's like we're a team.
Yeah.
Whatever we do on those bigger things, I always bring her into it. She brings me into it. It's like it's kind of nice to have a partner like that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, Jason. So do you want to tell us about what your plans are for the future?
I really like the idea of doing everything I'm doing already, but kind of getting into the entertainment side of things.
What do you
I'd
mean
like
by
to
entertainment, though? What do you mean by that
Well, I
exactly?
do podcasting now, but I'd like to do streaming stuff down the road. I had some experiences creatively. I know like we're all creative beings. When you think of the Big Bang Theory, creation created us and everything that exists. We have that within us.
Mm,
And I want to delve more into my creative side because I get so many downloads about ideas for shows and projects and stuff. So I've been kind of starting that process. I just haven't gotten as far as I want to get yet, but I plan on doing that at some point in 2025, like getting more serious about launching some projects and getting involved in some larger things than just podcasting.
mm. Well, it sounds like your ability has actually came sort of naturally, but do you have any advice for people that actually already have the ability but aren't recognizing it?
Yeah, I would tell anyone who's interested in trying to become more open up, meditate. If you think of the analogy of stargazing, you can't stargaze in the middle of a big city. It's too much light pollution. You're not going to see much. You'll glance at the sky, but it doesn't look very pronounced. When you go out with nature and go into like an area that you know there isn't no light pollution, you'll be able to see the cosmos and be fascinated by it. Just like that analogy exists, you have to remove the extraneous thoughts that are in your mind, thought pollution, the what ifs, the overthinking, whatever it is. Meditate, learn to be mindful, and from those processes, as well as prayer and reflection, you'll gain the understanding of how to connect with the other side and your higher self. I think that's a big part of it.
Mm, okay, okay.
People
And
can become more intuitive through that process.
okay. And is there any other techniques that they could use to notice that they actually have an intuitive ability, or do you think everyone does have an intuitive ability just naturally, but they haven't actually
I
exercised it?
really, I'm sorry, I really do believe everybody has that ability on some level. I mean, most of us have deja vu. Most of us think of somebody and then they call us or find this relationship that you can't get out of your mind. It's like more of a deeper connection, it's a 3D connection. It's like spiritual, like twin flame soulmates, those kind of things. Like all that stuff I've seen from people who come to me for readings or just experiencing things myself firsthand. And
Mm,
it makes me realize we're all spiritual beings living in a physical world. We're
mm,
all interconnected, no matter what. And if you look
absolutely.
at it that way, anyone who wants to tap into that, it's like tapping into the understanding that we're not three-dimensional. We're actually much more than that. And we're more
Mm,
interconnected than we realize.
multidimensional.
Yes. I
Mm,
like that.
mm.
I'll start doing that, saying that better.
And okay, so when spirits come to you, do they come to you as like an intuition, or do you ever get visions, or do you get like smell senses, or do you get? I mean, you already talked about being scratched, so that's touch. So how
I
do they
get a
come
little of
to you?
everything.
Okay.
I I get a little of everything, and I'm going to say it this way: if when you have a dream and you wake up from this dream and you realize it seems more realistic than before any other type of experience when you sleep, those are usually some type of direct contact or some type of spiritual connection. And in our particular situations, if you can realize that we probably have what I'll call breadcrumbs that happen to us every day. But if we don't pay attention to it, we're never going to pay attention to it and see it. You got to be open-minded to allow yourself to grow and
Mhm.
be confident in your abilities. And I think that was one of the challenges I had to learn was just letting it flow. And once I did, and I started reading people and practicing it, and it's like going to the gym, going, on a bike, it comes to naturally to me, and it'd be natural to a lot of other people. They just have to let it flow and get out of their own way.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean exactly. I had a dream, I'll say a dream, only recently where I had these three spirits come to me and they weren't doing so well because they weren't actually handling the fact that they died. And as a part of that experience, it seemed super real. I was sitting with them and started to tell them about how they heal. And instead of looking all ugly and all messed up, they started to actually reform back into normal
Wow.
shapes and heal in front of me. And I was like, well, that's great. And I woke up from that feeling really good because I felt
Um,
like I was helping them.
when you ask me about my senses, I'll basically say if we have five senses, and let's say we have five psychic senses, I don't know all of them to describe them because words don't always encapsulate the
Yeah.
senses and sensations, but I get images and I'll have stuff appear in dreams, and the next day there's a synchronicity with that dream, and I'm like, whoa. I've had experiences where I'll hear something, but then I'll hear it in my head, not through my ears. So it's kind of like, I guess that's your psychic hearing,
Yeah. Clear audience.
clear
Yeah.
audience. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I've also felt things like I get goosebumps when I walk into a room, or I'll feel that, and then I'll just thoughts pop in my head that I know aren't from me.
Yeah.
Then I know I'm channeling something or I'm picking up on something spiritually.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. One time I was meditating. Like sometimes they come to me when I'm meditating and just because they know that I'm really quiet. And
And you're open, and we're open between
that's it. And
sleep.
we're open. Yeah. Yeah. And I had this English lady's voice pop in and she said in very distinct, clear English, she said, we're the people from the other side of the room. And I just laughed and went, okay, hello, you know. So
That's
yeah,
when you take notice, right? You're
it
not going to
does. Well,
ignore
it's obvious because it's not. I'm not going to imagine an English woman saying that to me. So obviously, it was something else. So
How about when you realize your own mom's also psychic and intuitive? But my mom's sitting on the couch I'm sitting on the couch the other day. My mom went into the kitchen, and as I'm watching her pour herself something to drink, she's like, "Were you just behind me?" And she's looking at me, and I hadn't gotten off the couch. I'm like, "No." She's like, "There's a male spirit that just went right past me and rubbed my shoulder, but
um,
it's not a negative spirit. It's a reassuring." I'm like, "Where did this happen? Have you been eating your psychic Wheaties?" So I saged like crazy because I'm like, if I don't see this thing and this thing's going through my house and doing fist bumps with my mom, they should be paying some rent.
one
I
thing I
saged.
noticed, one thing I noticed when I was tuning up on my abilities when I was younger, I was working with a spirit and I said to her, "How do I bring everyone up into this level of understanding?" And she said, "Don't worry about it. Just because you're tuning up, what happens is that you radiate that energy and everyone else around you starts to wake up too." And I was like, wow, that's cool.
Absolutely.
And I did notice that actually happen over time. So yeah, it's cool.
It's
So what do
part
you,
of the, go ahead,
go
sorry.
ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say it's part of our existence that I guess we are acknowledging now more as we go through all these challenges in our world. I think we get more in tuned
Mm,
with all this stuff we're discussing right now on a personal level. I think our audience will know that over time too.
yeah, for sure. I think that's just what's happening because it's a part of the evolution of consciousness as a whole, really.
Definitely.
Mm, mm. So, Jason, where do you think we're going with everything in reality right now? We just talked about that everyone's starting to wake up more and more to these sort of abilities and everything. Where do you think we are in reality when it comes to that?
I think there's a renaissance going on right now. I think
Yeah,
when you
I agree.
see mainstream society and when you put on a commercial, I don't know if you have that down in Australia, but we have commercials where companies are utilizing the meditation mindfulness paradigm. And instead of like for a home warranty company, we have someone sitting there doing home warranty. Like I'm like, and then you have like things advertised on CNN and other channels mainstream that are showing things like 10 years ago was considered woo. And in my position on things, I feel like that shows that we're evolving.
Mm,
I think realize when you have something taken away from you, like during the pandemic, we all had our freedom to like our freedom of mobility and our fear of whatever occurring during the pandemic. And then afterwards, we realized we're not just here for whatever our original purposes are. We're here for
mm,
something much bigger in our lives. And I
mm,
feel like that all interconnects and it makes us appreciate like our path and our own journey within ourselves and our journey in the world.
mm. Yep, I totally agree with that. And I see that there is a good evolution going on. And Charles Ford actually talked about that in his books and did say that we're moving into the paradigm of magic. And it does seem that the world that we are all living in is actually turning definitely more magical.
I agree with you on that. I've seen that in my own life. You go out and you run into somebody you haven't seen in 4 years, or you have this serendipitous kind of thing that you almost run into each other,
Yeah.
or you're thinking about something, all of a sudden, next thing that happens. Like manifestation is so real to me.
Mm,
When people tell me how they manifested certain things, and I just respect that because I know it's real and authentic, and I know it happens. Too many people ignore it, but you can
mm,
focus, make it real.
yeah. Do any practices of that yourself
I
intentionally?
do. I do. I've been studying law of attraction for a while, and I have my vision board. And I'll give you an example. When my mom moved into my place, she fell and broke her arm and had surgery, and she was in the hospital. I had to move her stuff into my place. And the moving truck pulls up to my garage, which is already filled with stuff from my office and everything else that's in there. And I had four huge contractor-sized bags of debris to throw away, like stuff I don't need, garbage, and I had nowhere to put them. My car was filled up. My garage was filled up. The moving truck needs to make room. I got to get those bags out of there. And I'm sitting there overwhelmed. Like, what do I do? And for a minute, I took 3 deep breaths, prayed to God, and said, please let someone come to me and say, let me take this off your shoulders. And literally, I turned around, and the person who lives in my complex that works here, she pulled up with a golf cart and said, you want me to take those off your shoulders? And I was like, yes, please. And it wasn't trash collection day, by the way. So
Wow,
it
that's
was one of those
awesome.
moments. And then I realized everything fit. My garage is packed to the kilt. My mom got released from the hospital. I had to learn how to be a caregiver. And that was a learning experience for me. It was a lot. But with all that in mind, I manifested so many amazing things from that experience of the pressure.
Mm,
Manifested opportunities, manifested new beginnings and clearing things out. My garage is still packed up with stuff. I'm working on the fall to be some fall cleaning to get rid of the stuff I don't need that's been to consolidate further.
mm. Wow, it sounds like you are living the life of the magic and manifestation, which is awesome.
I love doing it on a personal.
Now, I was going to ask you, is there anything that I actually didn't bring up that you would have liked me to have brought up?
I just think people need to know whatever's bothering them mental health wise, don't be quiet about it. That's something I've been pondering about my thoughts. Like when I'm talking on shows, is we all come on these shows and we talk about all these concepts, and people listening to us are going through a hard time. Or, there's moments that you have things happen, like you feel like the carpet gets ripped out from underneath you. And the one thing I'll say from my experiences this year is everything comes and falls back together. You will get back to where you need to be, or things that you sometimes feel like aren't under your control. There's a benefit to that, and go with the flow of things. Surrender to the universe. Allow things to flow. They will.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that one of the insights that I've actually gained from listening and talking with so many amazing people so far is that we all think we're alone and we're all isolated in our experience, but that's the story we tell ourselves, which we do not really need to tell ourselves about because really everyone has experienced what you're going through. And you can
Exactly.
reach out, talk to people. I mean, that's why I'm doing super normalized because no one would listen to me in the past. So,
Well, when you put a mic, I'll make a joke about this.
yeah,
Uh, it's purpose 11. You and I are talking about all these concepts right now. If we were in
yeah.
person in a restaurant somewhere in either Australia or here in Tampa, we would probably whisper about some of the things we talk about because we're talking in a private conversation. But because we have a microphone and we're on a podcast, we beam it out to the world,
I'm actually close to the
right?
point now where I just tell everyone I don't care anymore. So it's like,
I'm the same way. It makes
yeah,
me laugh.
yeah, yeah. It's good to see the change though, isn't it? Over time, 10 years ago, I could jump in a cab and, the cabbie would talk about nothing. But now 10 years later, I jump in a cab and they actually talk about all the things I've been talking about for the last 10 years, but quietly. So it does,
Well, it makes
it does show the evolution, doesn't it, really?
And I'll tell you this, anyone who ever comes to me with the inclination they want to start their own podcast, I'm like, do it. There's
Yeah,
like
just
5 million
do it.
podcasts out there.
Yeah.
You need to be the sea in order to flow and enjoy the process. Like I think there's an art form here when
Mm.
we podcast. And I think there's something to it that we're only in the beginning of this process. It's gonna last a long time.
Yeah, I think so for sure too. So, Jason, we've come to the end of the show. Now, I would like you to share the links that you could possibly share so people can find you and learn more about you and watch all of your content too and listen to you. So if you could drop those, that'd be really good. But I'll also include those in the show notes as well because we'll email each
Absolutely.
other and keep up with each other on
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The best way to reach me is probably the social psychic, www.thesocialpsychic.com. That's my website. You can also look for me on social media. Most of my handles are at the social psychic or Jason Zuk, ZUK. I'm on Instagram at the social psychic, and you can find me there. I'm responsive to social media and stuff. It's one of those things I do on my off time, like we all do, I'm sure. And check out my podcast called The Social Psychic Radio Show, available on most platforms, as well as Psychic Visions. We're signed to Electrocast Media, our producers out of LA, and Megan Kane and I are also setting up the Paranormal Universe podcasting network for Electrocast Media. So those are just some things we're doing.
Wow, cool.
And I just thank everyone I thank you for giving me this opportunity to appear on your show, and I thank your audience for listening to us. I
Well, I
encourage anyone, anything, reach out.
well, I also thank Spirit for actually making it so we can get together to do this. So
Yeah, we've had some delays.
all right, Jason, it's really good to see you and good to talk to you. And I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. So thank you
I
very
would
much
like
for your
that.
time. Yeah, I would too, mate. It's been a good chat, and I hope you have a really good I think it's evening for you now.
Yes,
All
yes.
right.
Enjoy your Sunday.
All right. All right. See you better.
Have a good.
All right. I have a really good, warm connection with Jason, and I'm sure that came through on the show. So um, it was really good to talk to him because he actually has a really good, grounded sort of understanding of what he is experiencing and how it actually helps people around him. And if you've really enjoyed today's show, please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're on a podcast app, give us 5 stars and a really nice block of words. That'd be really cool. I'll read those out every now and then when I actually remember to go back to find all those awesome comments. So please do that too. And if you think somebody else would enjoy the show, please share it to a friend. Thank you so much for listening. Until next episode, bye for now.